An abandoned place is usually quiet. That silence is often nature's way of swallowing the void left behind by humans. But deep in the northern forests of Montana, there was an old military base, unmarked even on maps. Those who approached it would, for some reason, change their path. As if something still lived there. In 1993, the US Army evacuated the base overnight. Official records were filled with words like structural issues and shifting strategic priorities, but locals spoke of strange lights that suddenly appeared in the sky that night, a low, haunting hum, and men in uniformless clothes wandering the woods by morning. Years passed. The base was left to rot, forgotten, until the summer of 2023, when three friends camping in the area stumbled across a rusty barbed wire fence hidden in the brush. Beyond the fence lay a vast complex of moss-covered concrete walls and shattered windows. Inside, everything was coated in dust, yet some places were still warm. The electricity still worked. And behind a locked door in the basement, they found something. But the real story began after they found that body. In the depths of the old Delaware forests, there is a spot unmarked even on maps. Surrounded by mossy wire fences, it houses what was once an active military base. Fort Grendel, abruptly evacuated in 1987. Since then, only whispers have circulated about the area. No explanations from the government. No locals daring to venture near, until the summer of 23. Civilian investigator Lucas Varnett, working with the Missing Persons Department, noticed a chilling detail linking 5 separate disappearances. Though they were from different states, the victims' last cell phone signals all pinged near the northern Delaware forest line, roughly 6 kilometers from Fort Grendel. It didn't seem like coincidence. The victims' ages, genders, and social circles were completely different, yet they converged at this single point. Lucas sensed something was wrong, and soon his instincts would give way to evidence. He knew entering the area without permission was illegal, but as he set out with nothing but a map and night vision goggles, one question echoed in his mind. What's being hidden at that base, and why was it still so tightly guarded? By the time he followed the forest path, the sun had long since set, replaced by oppressive, humid darkness. As he moved between the trees, a faint static buzzed from the radio in his pack. He wasn't even sure it was switched on. Something, or someone, seemed to be watching him. After about an hour's walk, he stumbled upon an unmarked side trail. The dry branches covering it suggested no one had passed through in years, yet the footprints in the soil were fresh. Someone had definitely been here recently. Lucas swallowed hard, hesitated, then pulled the missing persons list from his inner jacket pocket. He scanned the names. Jessica Herndon, Paul Ritchie, Devin Black. Behind each name were question marks and grieving families. Turning back was no longer an option. The trail led him to a half-buried, stone-clad structure. A bunker, or a storage building, perhaps. Lucas pushed on the door. The rusted iron groaned as it finally gave way. Inside was complete darkness. He pulled out his flashlight and swept the beam across the interior. Symbols were etched into the walls, not military insignias, but strange shapes like something a child would draw. Some were eyes, some screams, others figures holding hands inside a giant circle. Lucas's heart pounded. Suddenly, a metallic click echoed from the right-hand wall. Reflexively, Lucas swung his light toward the sound. There, dusted with grime, stood a steel table. On it lay a battered folder. On its cover, only 3 characters. 17A. Ignoring his trembling hands, he opened it. Inside were black and white photographs from the 1980s, handwritten notes and documents stamped with military seals. One note in particular caught his attention. Experiment number 4 failed. Subject reacted violently. The door was resealed. Sub-level connection terminated. Team put into stasis. The door? Lucas whispered. Sub-level connection? Then he noticed something else. The note was dated. The exact day of the 1987 evacuation. Just then, he felt the faintest draft at his back. Turning, he noticed a barely visible seam in the wall, as if part of it had been hinged shut. He raised his flashlight and pointed it directly at the seam. A passage, closed but passable, its depths completely dark. Lucas pocketed his flashlight and pulled a glow stick from his bag. As he stepped toward the passage, he felt the strange cold and faint vibration of the floor beneath him. Oddly, the farther he went, the wider the passage seemed to grow, sloping downward. At the end of the tunnel, there was another door. This door was different. Sprayed in red paint, the words read, "Here they begin, here they end." Lucas froze. His eyes adjusted to the gloom. His breath quickened. Behind this door, there weren't just answers, but perhaps more questions. And it was far too late to turn back. Then he noticed the faint trail of blood seeping from beneath the door. The blood seeping from under the door wasn't fresh. Its colour was dark, clotted, yet thick enough to still cling to the floor. Lucas took a step back. He pulled gloves from his pocket and slipped them on. When he turned the rusty handle, the hinges groaned in agony. The door opened with a cold breath, and then the darkness seemed to swallow him whole. He tossed the glow stick inside. It struck the ground, rolled, and came to rest in a corner. What it revealed was bone-chilling. A room, enclosed by concrete walls, filled with chains hanging from the ceiling. At the ends of the chains, rusty, empty shackles. In one corner lay an old gurney. In another, a toppled camera tripod. And on the wall, a single word painted in red. Experiment. As Lucas moved to the centre of the room, he felt the floor vibrate faintly, as though it were hollow beneath him. Then he stepped on something. He bent down quickly. It was a child's shoe. Dirty, torn. Inside, written in faded ink, E. Colton. That name. Yes, it was on the missing persons list. Elliot Colton, 14 years old, reported missing, March 3rd, 2023. His heart thundered in his chest. Only one thing was missing now. And then it came. From behind the wall, a jagged, breathless whisper, not quite words, not quite sentences, just a murmur. But it was human. Lucas instinctively spun around, raising his flashlight. But no one was there. He exhaled deeply, reached into his jacket pocket, and switched on his radio. "Base, this is Varnett. I've reached the lower level. Possible biological remains. I found an item belonging to at least one missing child. Unable to request support. Signal is blocked. I'll allow 45 minutes for extraction. If I don't return, transmit the records." That was the time he gave himself. 45 minutes. Then, in the corner of the room, he noticed a metal hatch embedded in the floor. There were no bloodstains around it, but it wasn't dusty. Recently opened. Lucas pried it up. Beneath it was a shaft with a metal ladder descending into dim light. And again the whisper, this time clearer. "You didn't forget us." Logic fell silent now. Only instinct remained. Lucas descended, his legs trembling. The room below was almost like a laboratory. Glass tubes, electrical panels, metal gurneys, all rusted, abandoned. Yet in the middle stood a table, with an old tape recorder resting atop it. On the device, 1986, he switched it on. The tape hissed, but the voice was audible. Subject 12 reacted violently. Hypnotic regression failed. Codenamed depth activated. 17A is sealed. They are now here. Static. Then screams, both children and women. The recorder stopped on its own. In that moment, Lucas realized this hadn't just been military experiments. This was mind manipulation, hypnotic experiments on children, perhaps something even worse. He felt movement behind him. He turned, and there he was, a man in a torn military uniform, his eyes hollow, lips cracked, skin pale as ash. He only whispered, "Why? Did you come now?" Lucas froze. You're alive?" The man didn't answer. Instead, he turned to the wall and pointed at a section that looked newer than the rest. He whispered again, "They lie there." Lucas slowly approached the wall. He ran his hand across the surface. Something shifted beneath his fingers, as if someone was inside. Then, a faint knocking came from behind the wall. 1, 2, 3. Were they still alive? When he turned back to search for a tool, the man was gone. No sound, no footprints. As if he'd never existed, Lucas crouched before the wall. He had to choose, go back for help or open it alone. Then he pulled Elliot's shoe from his pocket, and he decided there was no time. He began clawing at the wall with his hands. With every stone he removed, the whispers grew louder, and with every whisper, the hidden darkness seeped deeper into the room. Then, a red light blinked from the ceiling corner. Someone was watching him, and it meant things had only just begun. At dawn, Adam Harper leaned against a cracked concrete wall at the rear of the base, breathless. His eyes locked on the gaping black mouth of the collapsed hangar ahead. They had to go in. The night before, one of their team, Daniel, had vanished. His last words over the radio still echoed in Harper's mind. "We're not alone here." Beside him, April knelt on the icy stone floor, poring over old plans. "This place isn't on any map," she whispered. "It's like it never officially existed." Then she looked up at Harper. "They're hiding something here." Inside, the stench of rust and decay hit them instantly. Light was scarce, only April's dim flashlight guiding the way. The corridor walls were covered in flaking red warning signs, but one stood out. Experimental wing, restricted. From that moment on, everything changed. At the corridor's end stood a steel door marked C3. It wasn't bolted but refused to budge. Harper pulled an old badge card from his pocket, swiped it against the reader. The light turned green. The door groaned open. The room was vast, but not empty. At the center, a giant table. On it, inside a glass dome, a military uniform. But the body inside was real, mummified, sunken-eyed, the insignia still glinting on its chest. And on the wall behind it, faint in the flickering light, "They didn't want the world to know." April covered her mouth. Harper's eyes fell to a dusty file on the table. Brushing it off revealed a single word on the cover: Echo. From that moment on, nothing was what it seemed. Inside the file were documents proving covert military experiments had been conducted here, but not to fight enemies. Notes mentioned consciousness control, memory implantation, and visual hallucination induction. Most chilling of all, the tests had been carried out on civilians. As Harper read, April cracked open a cabinet along the wall, and everything changed. Inside was a small chest. Tapes inside, labelled with years and names. 1982, D. Callahan. 1983, E. Murphy. 1985, J. Connor. April popped one into her portable player. The voice was static-ridden but clear. Daniel Callahan. Experiment, no. 5. They brought me here by force. Every night the same screaming. Please, stop me. This isn't my mind anymore. Harper narrowed his eyes. Daniel Callahan. He was the base commander, but they said he killed himself in 1982. April's voice was tight. What if he didn't? What if... They took his mind. Just then, movement outside the hangar caught their attention. The radio hissed, then whispered, "Run! They're watching! Don't enter the room!" But it was too late. They followed the sound and found the pack belonging to Marcus, the missing team member, blood-streaked. The ground around it bore not footprints, but drag marks, as if someone or something hadn't been walking. Then they saw it, carved again and again into the walls of the base. Grim, inevitable. Echo sees all. Clues mounted. Harper and April realized their entry wasn't an accident. Everything they saw, everything they experienced, was being shown to them on purpose. Harper closed his eyes. Strange images flashed in his mind. Unfamiliar faces, alien memories, even scenes from April's own past. "April," he murmured, "do you think this is all just in our heads?" April couldn't answer. She was seeing it too. At the very bottom level, they finally found it. A massive door, sealed with a military insignia and a warning in red. Final level, no return. They opened it. Inside, a vast observation room. Dozens of monitors, each screen showing homes, streets, people's lives, different towns, cities, even countries. And in the corner of every screen, Echo Online. A voice echoed behind them. "Welcome!" A figure emerged from the dark, in a tattered uniform, eyes glinting. Daniel Callahan. But not alive. Not in any normal sense. "I am only a memory with a body," he said. "Like everyone kept here." Harper backed away. April's hands trembled. "Why did no one come here all these years?" Callahan asked. "Why were the files erased? Why did people disappear?" "Because we learned the truth, and they never let us leave." April stammered. "Then why are we here?" Callahan smiled faintly. "Because Echo needs new minds." The final alarm sounded. All screens went black save for a single line. "Transfer initiated. Subjects 044 and 056. Harper and April's bodies stiffened, their eyes fixed, and then everything went dark. 3 weeks later, in a southern town, a woman walked through a park. Beside her, a man, both familiar yet unknown to anyone. The woman's gaze was empty. The man never spoke. From afar, a child stopped his bike and asked his mother, "Mum, why are those people staring at that shed?" The mother turned. The pair was staring at an abandoned shack at the park's edge. Above it, a sign, "Echo Installation, Restricted Property." What neither the mother nor the boy knew was this: that sign hadn't been there yesterday. Thus, an abandoned military base. Experiments reaching back decades, and 2 minds trapped inside an endless surveillance system. The story ends. Or perhaps begins again.